If you were paying attention to what was going on in the NBA last night on Tuesday, January 21st, you would have seen that the Suns pulled off the rare 1 first round for 3 first round pick trade, which you don't see often. I remember I saw it and I was like, wait a second. Even pulled off a Brian Windhorst. Why would they do this? There's some 7th or 8th grader that was going to go to Phoenix, but now is probably going to Salt Lake City because the Jazz got the Suns 2031 first round pick in exchange for 3 first round picks in the coming years. And I think the writing is on the wall that this was a move to move the Suns closer to acquiring Jimmy Butler from the Miami Heat. Now, where it gets murky is how is that going to happen? We know Bradley Beal is the salary matching piece. We know he has a no trade clause. So other teams could probably get involved. The Heat, the Bucks have been mentioned as a potential facilitator for that trade. There's been a lot going on there. But I guess at this point, by the time you hear this, Jimmy Butler could be a Sun. He wore Suns colored shoes last night against the Trailblazers in a loss to the Trailblazers, by the way. So I guess let's just talk about it. Like, it feels like this is the Jimmy Butler saga that is nearing its end. But I guess the other question is the Jimmy Butler saga ever really over? What do we make of Jimmy Butler to Phoenix, what that could do for Phoenix, how that changes the Western Conference landscape, and is this the way you saw it ending to begin with?
It's definitely not the way that I saw it ending. I mean, I know there was like some well-reported turmoil between Jimmy Butler and the Heat's front office and Pat Riley specifically for a couple of years now, dating back to like him dressing up as like an emo, like Blink-182 artist for, media day. Like that kind of felt like, I guess, the beginning of the end, but at the time they were coming off a pretty impressive run. So like it didn't really feel like the beginning of the end at that point. But, now that trade yesterday, and I guess just to kind of like clear that up for the listeners, like, why would a team trade 3 first rounders for 1 first rounder? The answer is just that they're banking on the Suns being bad in 2031. That's an unprotected pick. The Suns get 3 worse first round picks in return. I think it's like the worst possible outcome between the Cavs, the Timberwolves,
and Jazz.
And then I think one of them is the Jazz. Yeah. So it's like, whatever the lowest pick is of those 3. But, from the Suns side, I didn't even like get to the, Brian Windhorst, like, why would they do that meme? Because it was pretty self-explanatory. Like they just want to acquire as many draft picks as possible to be able to reroute them in a trade to try and land Jimmy Butler, who wants to come to Phoenix. And, for Utah, it's, you have a better unprotected pick. And they are kind of consolidating the picks that they got in the Donovan Mitchell trade from the Cavs a few years back. So, that kind of explains why that went down in the first place. Now to the actual, like, the meat of it, which is like, why is this happening in the outcome? Like, Jimmy Butler to Phoenix is an extremely interesting trade. A lot of the other chatter around that trade is a potential deal with the Bucks and potentially the Toronto Raptors are a team who are involved. I've seen, iterations where maybe the Bulls are the other team that's involved. But the idea would be that Jimmy Butler would go to Phoenix and Bradley Beal would end up in Milwaukee, which is a place that he is reportedly willing to waive his no trade clause to go there, compete next to Dame and Giannis, which makes sense to me. The Jimmy Butler fit in Phoenix is an interesting one because, I already kind of feel like, and this is the issue with Bradley Beal, is that like, in order to be successful, in order for that team to be the best possible version of themselves, they need the ball in Kevin Durant and Devin Booker's hands as much as possible. Jimmy Butler is not exactly a low maintenance superstar, both on and off the court. Like he's not somebody who is going to make a major impact standing on the side and waiting to catch and shoot. Like that's not his game. He has to have the ball in his hand. He has to be able to get downhill. He likes taking those mid-range pull-ups, like kind of similar to how KD and D Book do. Obviously on the defensive end, he would immediately become their best perimeter defender, with all due respect to Ryan Dunn, who's been incredible as a rookie. And he's been doing a great job in the starting lineup since he took over that starting role from Bradley Beal. But, I do have concerns about like how much better does Jimmy Butler really make that team? Because that's just another mouth to feed and another person who's taking the ball away from KD and Book. But at the same time, like anytime you can get a winner, a competitor, playoff performer, someone who, can raise the intensity, elevate them defensively. Like I get why they're trying to make this move as another big swing, in addition to like bringing in guys like Nick Richards and like trying to make a bunch of moves to just basically, mix up the disaster they already have going on and just hope that eventually something clicks and it works. Jimmy Butler is an upgrade from Bradley Beal without a doubt. So if that's basically what it ends up coming down to, that and draft picks, then it makes a ton of sense for Phoenix. Now, as far as the other teams, like it's tough to get too far into the speculation because we don't know if Beal is going to actually end up in Milwaukee. So like, how much is it really worth talking about how he would fit there? It might not be worth it, but that's kind of an intriguing fit as well. With him trying to fill, my guess would be a bench scoring role, which is something that Milwaukee needs.
Yeah, no, you mentioned that. And interesting, as I was thinking about this, because I didn't think about this at first. The two things I'm hearing is that Jimmy Butler is going to be a Sun, and then the Suns are going to try to make a play for somebody like Denny Avdia, who's having a really underratedly, quietly nice season up in Portland. And it would be pretty ironic if Yusuf Nurkic is the guy they move to make that happen. Talk about things going full circle. What's next? They're going to just get Chris Paul in the buyout market. But that being said, I see it's an interesting spot because we talked about this last week with the contender tier in the Western Conference. And so far what we've seen is that OKC is in a tier of its own, and understanding that there are things that Memphis and Houston could do that maybe legitimize what they've shown this season. The Lakers, the Warriors, these older teams are in a weird spot, and that they could do something maybe, but like, would that really help? The Mavericks are dealing with so many injuries, and they've just been dealt another injury as of today with Derek Lively out 2 to 3 months. So I do think that Phoenix, given the state of the Western Conference, does put itself in its own, I guess, tier if it works out and they're like right under OKC. Again, if it works out and if this Jimmy move is a part of other moves, we've sung the praises about getting Tyus Jones and having a true pure point guard, and he's had some pretty good moments with Phoenix this season. So I do think it's interesting. It's one of those things though where I don't really know like the best analogy to say, but it's one of those things where you just kind of keep correcting something and you make a mistake, you set yourself further back and you try to fix it again. So thinking about, Matt Ishbia's tenure with the Suns and the trade to get Kevin Durant and firing Monty Williams and trading Chris Paul. So many things have happened. I kind of forget the order in which they happened. I do know Chris Paul and Kevin Durant played together for like 8 games, and Monty Williams was on that one. And also they've gone through a couple coaches, Monty Williams, Frank Vogel. Now they're on Bud. So a lot of stuff has happened. A lot of changes have been made. And I guess what's one more change to be made at this point if the Bucks continue to try to tinker with things? I'm sorry, the Suns are going to try to continue to tinker with things and try to figure out an answer to win in the Western Conference and win big in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I think like the funniest analogy that I've seen, I keep reiterating it myself too. Like Matt Ishbia is like honestly operating this team like he is doing a 2K like online association. And it's just like, all right, well, I'm going to trade for this star player. I mean, the first thing that he did right when he took over is immediately trade like all his future assets to get Kevin Durant. And I remember like texting my brother, because it's Ishbia and his brother who are kind of pulling the strings right now. And I remember like immediately texting my brother laughing about it, being like, man, like if you and I took over an NBA franchise, like I feel like that's probably the exact same thing I would do. Like, you know what? Yeah, take all my draft picks. Like Kevin Durant's been one of my favorite players ever, all time. Like, why don't we come get Kevin Durant in a Suns jersey? We'll figure out the rest after that. And I mean, hey, it hasn't worked out for them to this point, but like you said, just kind of keep overcorrecting until maybe something finally does click and work. Is Jimmy Butler that guy? Like, I don't know. I mean, hey, if he's going to be happy and engaged in playing at a high level, then like he theoretically should make the Suns a better team. But does that make them like a championship contender, a team that I think could knock off, Oklahoma City or even like Denver, who's playing really good basketball right now? Teams that play more like kind of like team oriented basketball, like the Grizzlies and Rockets. Like I'm still not convinced the Suns even win a playoff series if they land Jimmy Butler. I don't think that is a guarantee. Now, could they make a run to the Western Conference Finals? Yeah, they could do that too. But like to me, in the moment right now, and I don't know if you feel any differently, like Jimmy Butler going to the Suns does not immediately make them like a favorite to win the West, or even probably like a top 3 favorite to win the West. I think if anything, it just kind of raises their ceiling of how far they can go.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I appreciate you pointing out Denver, because when I was naming tiers and going through stuff, I didn't have the standings in front of me. So obviously Nikola Jokic, as we record this, 4 triple doubles in a row. So the Nuggets definitely deserve mentioned as far as that goes. But I'm with you. I don't think that this move, it puts them in an interesting spot, just because I think every team in the Western Conference fits in this category where they could be a first round exit, they could be a play-in tournament team, or they can make a run to the Western Conference Finals. So long as OKC handles their business, it should be them playing in June. But again, injuries are at play and things of that nature. I guess you kind of put yourself in a better position. You put more chips in your deck to have more opportunities or more outcomes that work in your favor. But like we kind of said when we talked about the Knicks making the deal that they did when we first were assessing that, does it increase your likelihood of making that run from like, 8% to 15% or something like that. I don't necessarily think that it moves the needle that much. But again, I understand an ownership group like Matt Ishbia's, why they're just trying to do whatever it takes to win and win big for a franchise who has never won that big. And the Suns have been around for a really long time to say that they've never won an NBA championship, even though they came a few wins away 4 years ago, which does not seem like it was 4 years ago. And we talked about Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and we talked about this trade, and the clock is on. The timer is on.